Chapter 1. The Nursery. Wendy, John, and Michael Darling live in a lovely house in London. They have got a big sunny nursery. There are colourful pictures and a big clock on the wall. There are toys here and there. The Darlings are a happy family. Mr. Darling and Mrs. Darling love their children very much. Wendy is the first child. John is the second, and Michael is the third. The children's nanny is called Nana, and she's a big Newfoundland dog. Her kennel is in the nursery, and she is a wonderful nanny. She loves the children, and the children love her. One evening, Mr. and Mrs. Darling want to go to a dinner party. They have their best clothes on. "Nana, it's time to put the children to bed," says Mrs. Darling. Nana goes to the bathroom. She turns on the hot water for Michael's bath. She puts her paw in the water to check the temperature. It's perfect.
"I don't want to have a bath,"
says little Michael. But Nana is a firm nanny, and Michael has his bath. Then Nana gives the children their pyjamas. Now they're ready for bed. Mrs. Darling comes into the nursery and smiles. "Good work, Nana. I see the children are ready for bed." Nana wags her big tail. Suddenly, there's a noise. Mrs. Darling sees a young boy outside the nursery window. She's very surprised. Nana barks and shuts the window quickly. The boy's shadow falls on the floor. The young boy flies away. "Who's there?" asks Mrs. Darling. She opens the window and looks outside, but she sees nothing. Then she sees the boy's shadow on the floor and says, "Poor boy, this is his shadow. Let's put it in the drawer." The children are in bed. Mr. Darling takes Nana to the garden. Then he goes to the sitting room and waits for Mrs. Darling. Mrs. Darling sings to the children, "La, la, 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 la," and kisses them. She's a perfect mother. Soon, the three children are sleeping. Mr. and Mrs. Darling go to their bedroom. They put on their coats and go to the dinner party. Chapter 2. The Shadow. The children are sleeping and dreaming. Suddenly, the window opens. A small ball of light enters the nursery and flies around. It is a lovely fairy called Tinker Bell. She is looking for something. After a moment, a young boy enters the nursery and says,
"Tink, where are you? Please find my shadow."
Tinker Bell finds his shadow in the drawer and gives it to him.
"Now I can stick the shadow to my feet with some soap,"
he thinks. He tries and tries again, but he can't. He is very confused and starts crying. Wendy wakes up and sees the boy. But she's not afraid. His clothes are made of leaves.
Little boy, why are you crying?
Wendy asks. The boy takes off his cap and asks,
What's your name?
Wendy Moira Angela Darling. What's yours?
Peter Pan.
Is that all?
Yes.
says Peter. Then he thinks,
My name is very, very short.
Wendy looks at his shadow and asks,
Can I help you with your shadow?
Yes, please,
says Peter. Wendy gets her sewing basket and sews on Peter's shadow. After a few minutes, she says,
Finished. Now you have your shadow again.
Peter looks at the floor and sees his shadow. He's very happy and dances around the room.
Oh, Wendy, you were wonderful,
says Peter.
Do you really think so?
Asks Wendy.
Yes,
says Peter. Wendy smiles and gives Peter a kiss on the cheek.
Oh,
says Peter.
how nice.
How old are you, Peter?
Asks Wendy.
I don't know, but I am young. I don't want to grow up. I always want to be a boy and have fun.
Peter looks around the room for his fairy. He hears a noise and looks in a drawer. Tinker Bell flies out. Wendy is delighted to see a fairy, but Tinker Bell is afraid. She hides behind the big clock.
Where do you live, Peter?
Asks Wendy.
I live in Neverland with the lost boys,
Says Peter.
Neverland? The Lost Boys? Who are they?
Asks Wendy.
The lost boys haven't got a mother or father. They are alone in the world and they live in Neverland. I am their captain. In Neverland, we fight the pirates. We also swim in the lagoon with the beautiful mermaids. Fairies live in the trees in the forest. The fairies are my friends,
Says Peter.
Oh, what fun!
Says Wendy.
I must go back now. I must tell the lost boys a story. They love stories.
Says Peter.
Don't go away. I know a lot of stories.
Says Wendy.
Then come with me, Wendy. You can tell us stories. We all want a mother. Please come.
Says Peter.
But I can't fly.
Says Wendy.
I can teach you to fly.
Says Peter.
Can you teach John and Michael to fly too?
Yes, of course.
Says Peter.
John, Michael, wake up. This is Peter Pan. He's from Neverland. It's a beautiful place.
Says Wendy. John and Michael are very surprised.
We can go there with them. But first we must learn to fly.
Wendy says. Wendy, John and Michael are very excited. They try to fly, but fall on the beds and on the floor.
No, no,
Says Peter.
here is some fairy dust.
He puts some fairy dust on their shoulders.
Now try again.
Says Peter.
Look, I can fly.
Says Wendy.
I can too.
Says John.
Me too.
Says little Michael.
Tink, show us the way to Neverland.
says Peter. They follow Tinker Bell and fly out of the nursery window. In the garden, Nana looks at the sky and barks. Mr. and Mrs. Darling return from the dinner party. They go into the nursery, but it is empty. Chapter 3. The Neverland. Wendy, John, and Michael fly over cities, towns, mountains, forests and seas. Finally, they see an island in the sea below them.
Look, that's Neverland,
says Peter.
Neverland!
Say the children. In Neverland, the lost boys live in the forest in a secret underground home. There are 6 lost boys: Slightly Soiled, Tootles, Nibs, Curly, and the twins. They are waiting for Peter. Suddenly, they hear the voices of the pirates. Nibs is very brave. He goes out, hides behind a tree, and looks around him. He sees the horrible pirates. They are walking in the forest. They are big and ugly. Their pirate ship is the Jolly Roger. The pirates' captain is James Hook. He is a cruel pirate and a very bad man. He's got black eyes, black hair, and a black beard. He hates Peter Pan. He's only got one arm. The other is a hook. In the past, Peter Pan cut off Captain Hook's right arm during a fight. A crocodile ate the arm. Now the crocodile follows Captain Hook everywhere because he wants to eat him. The crocodile has an alarm clock in its stomach. Captain Hook can always hear it.
I know the lost boys live in this forest. We must find them and Peter Pan,
says Captain Hook.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Captain Hook hears the alarm clock.
Oh no, the crocodile is coming to eat me,
says Captain Hook. He runs away and the pirates follow him. Soon, some Indians arrive in the forest. They are looking for the pirates. The pirates are their enemy. Tiger Lily is their leader. She is the beautiful daughter of the Indian chief. She loves Peter Pan. Tinker Bell and Wendy love him too. The Indians go away, and the lost boys return to play in the forest. Then Nibs looks at the sky and says,
Look, there is a lovely white bird in the sky. Is it really a bird?
The lost boys ask. Tinker Bell says,
Yes, it's a bird. It's a Wendy bird. You must shoot it.
Sometimes Tink is a bad fairy. She knows it is Wendy, but she doesn't like her. Nibs takes his bow and arrow and shoots Wendy. Poor Wendy falls to the ground. The lost boys see Wendy and say,
She's not a bird, she's a lovely girl.
Peter flies down with John and Michael and asks,
Where is Wendy?
Tootles says,
Here she is.
Peter goes over to her and asks,
Wendy, are you all right?
Wendy slowly opens her eyes and smiles.
Yes, but I'm very tired,
She says. The lost boys are sorry. They decide to build her a little house. When the house is ready, Wendy says,
What a lovely little house. Thank you. Can you be our mother now? Can you tell us bedtime stories before we go to bed?
asks Nibs.
Of course,
Says Wendy.
Come in and I can tell you the story of Cinderella.
They enter, sit down, and listen to Wendy's story. It is a wonderful story. Peter Pan is outside the house with his sword. He wants to protect Wendy and the lost boys.